Hello and welcome to another episode of the Classical Republican. Today I am here with Executive Council Member Dave Wheeler of New Hampshire. So we're going to start right off into it. What are the responsibilities of the Executive Council?
Well, the Executive Council is a very unique thing. It basically, the state of New Hampshire is the only state that has it. It has its roots in the abuses of colonial royal power, and they wanted a check and balance on the governor and the executive branch of government. So the institution goes way back. So we really have in New Hampshire a two-part executive branch. We have the governor and the executive council. We do not have a lieutenant governor in New Hampshire. So that's our structure. And the founding fathers have made the council a check on the governor. And the governor can also check the council, because the governor is basically the one that sets the agenda. And if the council wants to spend money or votes to appoint a particular person and he disagrees, then he has a check on the council, and he can say no, even though the majority, the three of you, or minimum 3 out of the 5 counselors want something, he can say no. So it's a great check and balance. I think it's important to note that this is set up so that all executive state government business and decisions are made in public, with the press present, and of course now they can hear it online and it's filmed, and in the modern day, and I think that keeps corruption out of state government to the best that's possible by doing everything in public. So maybe it's helpful, or let me put it this way too. So most of the politicians in New Hampshire are not paid. And I'm emphasizing that today by wearing my work shirt, no suit and tie. I have a full-time job in my own business, growing Christmas trees and making maple syrup and doing floors. So the council by no way provides an income for any of the councilors. We get a small stipend that covers our expenses and travel and such as that. And our legislature in New Hampshire is 400 House members and 24 senators, and they make a big $100 a year. And we're pretty proud of that here in New Hampshire. There's many attempts to change the pay scale, but we like it that we're volunteers. We're people who go to work every day. We're out in the real world, in business or employed, trying to make ends meet. And so that gives us a unique perspective on what government should be and what government shouldn't be. I have 2 employees and I have to make sure I can meet payroll. And I think that gives us an austere view on what government should be, and how to help the people and not just try to take over and be everything to everybody and tax everybody to death. So our motto in New Hampshire goes way back: live free or die. And we take that very seriously here. We very much value freedom here. So more about the Executive Council, if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So here are some of the things we do. For any dollar to be spent in New Hampshire, it takes at least 3 counselors to say yes, and the governor, or the money just doesn't get spent. We view up close all state contracts over $10,000. So that's a pretty low threshold for the type of things we spend money on at the state government. We get a pile of paperwork probably this high every 2 weeks of those type of contracts we have to read through, make sure that we are selecting the right vendor and that's qualified and that has the best price for the services that we need. So we also are the ones that approve promotions in the state, air, national, and Army National Guard. All go through the governor and council. And other responsibilities that we have is to develop a 10-year transportation plan for our highway and road and bridge system in the state. The executive council goes out and holds public hearings in the state. In our, relatively small geographical size state, will go into 25, 26 different areas, have public hearings every 2 years, and listen to the public, listen to our regional planning commissions, and set the priorities on which bridges needs to be fixed first, which roads needs to be paved, and where we need construction projects to, improve our infrastructure. We hand that plan off to the legislature, who may tweak it a little bit, and then obviously, if they tweak it too much, we're the ones that are on the sign in the bottom line, whether we build the project or not. So we have a little influence on the legislature not tweaking it too much.
Nice. Yeah.
So check on the legislature with the highway spending as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In New Hampshire, we hire all the department heads and set their pay. The governor and council, in many states, that's the state senate, but that's not the case here. We're also the ones that will decide whether we hire the governor's nominations for judges. That's an executive council function here. You may have heard maybe on national news recently, the Pamela Smart case. I don't know if you've heard that out of there, but it was a murder for hire case. She keeps coming before the governor and council for a pardon or a commutation of her sentence, and we keep turning her down. But so we have the power to issue pardons, not the governor alone here. It have to happen with the consent of the council. And it's rare, but in my few years on the council, we have issued 2, 3, maybe pardons or commutations. But it does happen. And then we're also responsible for state commissions, i.e. notaries of the public and justices of peace, all have to be approved by the executive council. And we would review a person's background and make sure that they don't have anything criminal in their background that would hinder them from taking this responsibility of being a JP or notarizing important documents. So that's kind of what the council does in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. So you have been an alderman and a mayor yourself. Do executive council members strive to represent the district, or do they have more of a statewide outlook?
Well, no, I wasn't a mayor. I was a state representative and state senator.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Prior to the council. Yeah, I should have corrected that in your notes here. But yes, legislator. But I think what's important to do is when you're campaigning, to be honest and tell the people where you stand on the issues, especially, the big issues of the day. I tell people, and they know I'm a pro-life person, and they know that I'm a very pro-Second Amendment person. And if you can't live with that, don't vote for me. That's one way to handle that situation, is to make sure you're upfront with the people. People know that I stand for low taxes. And then once I get into government, people see that I vote against wasteful spending. And some of the spending coming out of Washington right now is ridiculous. And you'll see that my constituents will see that we vote against that ridiculous stuff. So that's kind of how I handle that. Because there's some things I can't, some things are a matter of principle that I personally can't bend on, which would be pro-life and pro-gun. That's 2 examples. I can't bend on that. So if you can't live with that, don't vote for me.
Okay. Does the executive council have an official parliamentary procedure manual?
No, and actually we operate relatively loosely. So the governor would be the one that presides over this meeting and chairs it, let's say. And we could adopt Robert's rules or Mason's rules, but we haven't, and it runs pretty smoothly. We do have a high level of respect for each other, even those that we disagree with. You will rarely hear a raised voice. You'll hear a passionate voice, but hardly, an angry voice, and especially directed at each other. We stay focused on the issues, and that's worked very good without having to have that strict parliamentary framework.
How many executive council vetoes have you ever seen? And can you tell us about a specific one?
Well, we had a request for a pardon once, that all 5 councilors said, yes, we should pardon this person. And the governor wasn't comfortable with that. So the governor negated the pardon vote. And then we moved to commute that person's sentence, and 5-0. And the governor said, okay, I can go along with that. And we commuted the sentence of that person. One of the few rare times that we've done a pardon or commutation of a sentence. That's one example.
Okay. What kind of turnover do you see on the executive council? Is it comparable to what you see in the legislature?
What I see in the legislature is about 1/3 turnover. And again, remember, they're serving without pay.
Yeah.
So there's a disincentive to be there at $100 a year. And similar to the council, because our job is more full-time, the legislature, unless they raise their hand and volunteer for study committees and things like that, they basically go home at the end of June and they have 6 months off. Our job is year round. And so we get a bigger stipend, and we have to travel around the state doing the highway hearings and other things like that. Basically, we work out of our home office most of the time, and then go to the State House maybe once a week to do things that have to be done there and for the formal council meetings. So the turnover is about the same in the council. Usually a councilor, I'm an exception. I'm in my 12th year, but I've been in and out. So without term limits, I've been in and out. I have a swing district. So sometimes, when we have a good Republican year, I win. When we have a Democrat, big Obama year, I lose. So I've been there 12 out of the last 20 years.
Okay.
2 years. Yeah. So anyways, and that's okay. The people spoke. So I forgot the question.
Just about turnover. So yeah, you answered the question. Thank you.
Did get to it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have there ever been proposed changes for the executive council? For example, like a term limit or something?
Yeah, I mean, there's been legislation once or twice, or at least strong rumblings of it. There was a proposal, a constitutional amendment, many years ago, and the people, when that constitutional amendment went on the ballot statewide, the people turned that down almost 3-1. They see the value of the check and balance on the governor, and I think people like that, and it fits with our layman system of government, if you will, to have those check and balances. And I would say probably we have the weakest governor in the country because of the council being a check and balance. So the more you spread out that power, the better it is for the people.
Is it common for executive council members to run for higher office?
Yeah, it is. It seems, at least as of late, for it to be a stepping stone to run for governor. And you probably know that our current Governor Sununu, was an executive councilor who served with me on the council, 8 years ago now, I think. And then his opponent last time was on the executive council. And the opponent before that was on the executive unsuccessful both, but yeah, stepping stone quite often.
Okay. Well, you've already touched on this question, but
Uh-oh, lost you. There
oh,
you
can you hear me now?
No, I got, yeah, you're
You good
back.
now? Okay. You've already touched on this question, but is there anything else you could tell us about the great impact that the Executive Council has on New Hampshire?
Well, I think I did touch on that a little bit, but I think it's the openness that it brings to state government as well. You don't, a lot of other states, you see a lot of closed, behind closed doors decisions. All the votes that I'm talking about, have talked about the department heads, the judges, the pardons, the notaries, the JPs, the whole spending of the 12 billion state budget is all done in public. And then we will also hold public hearings for judges and major department heads to let the people come into the council and say whether they like this person or not, whether they think this person is qualified or not, give us their weaknesses and their strengths, so that, and that's relatively new, having all those public hearings within the last couple of decades. And I think it was a good improvement, and sets up a forum for the people to be heard. Here in New Hampshire, with 400 state reps, which means you have a state representative for every 4,000 or 5,000 people. You go downtown to get a haircut and someone grabs your ear and says, "Mirror," and they expect you to listen, because you should. So that's kind of our New Hampshire way, and we're pretty proud of it.
Well, that's great. Well, that's all I have for you. Do you have any last words before we finish?
No, thank you for reaching out. It's always a pleasure to educate and put the word out there about the great state of New Hampshire.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for doing this with me.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right, you have a good day.
You too, bye.